Greta Thunberg along with 3 other activists aboard the Gaza Aid flotilla, which was seized a few days ago. Upon her arrival in Paris while on her way to her home country of Sweden, Thunberg spoke of the conditions her and her fellow activists were subjected to. But the 22-year-old, who boasts an impressive 20 million following between social media platforms, Instagram and X, said the seizure of the ship was not the primary crime Israel committed.
Bringing us to Israel. The real story is that there is a genocide going on in Gaza and a systematic starvation following the siege and blockade now, which is leading to food, medicine, water that are desperately needed to get into Gaza is prevented from doing so.
Israel rejects Thunberg's claims of poor treatment, adding that the entire trip was nothing more than a gimmick.
Greta, persona non grata, received food and good treatment. Israel acted in a peaceful manner. I want to be clear, this persona non grata will not be allowed to stay in Israel. Greta and their friends brought in a tiny amount of aid on their celebrity yacht. It did not help the people of Gaza. This was nothing but a ridiculous gimmick, a publicity stunt and nothing more.
7 others who were passengers on the Gaza Aid ship remain in Israel, where they'll be detained for 96 hours before being presented to a judge for deportation. The 4 who were released had agreed to sign documents consenting to voluntary removal.
I'm very worried about them. We heard many different messages pointing towards that they would not make it easy. And there were troubles with being able to see lawyers. So I'm very much calling for their immediate release.
The Swedish activist pledged to continue fighting for the Palestinian people. She also urged her supporters to demand their governments to exert pressure on Israel to allow the entry of more aid and bring an end to the war.
Israel deports Greta Thunberg and 3 other activists' Gaza aid boat. Thunberg urged her supporters to exert more pressure on their governments to demand the regular flow of aid to Gaza, end the 20-month-long war on the enclave, and eliminate the ongoing system oppression and violence that Palestinians endure daily. Israel deported climate activist Greta Thunberg on Tuesday, just 1 day after the Israeli military seized the ship she was on, which was bound for Gaza. Upon her arrival in Paris, while on her way back to her home country of Sweden, Thunberg urged for the release of the other activists who were taken into custody aboard the Madleen flotilla. She characterized the situation during their detention as quite chaotic and uncertain. The conditions they faced are absolutely nothing compared to what people are going through in Palestine and especially Gaza right now, she added. The trip was meant to protest Israeli restrictions on aid to Gaza's population of over 2 million people after 20 months of war, according to the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, the group behind the journey. We were well aware of the risks of this mission, Thunberg noted. The aim was to get to Gaza and to be able to distribute the aid. She said the activists would continue trying to get aid into the enclave and breach what she called an unjust siege. On Monday, US President Donald Trump called Thunberg strange and a young angry person and recommended she take anger management classes. I think the world need a lot more young angry women, Thunberg said Tuesday in response to Trump, who she's clashed with online on previous occasions. She also asserted that some of the activists detained experienced difficulties in contacting their lawyers. Asked why she agreed to deportation, she said, "Why would I want to stay in an Israeli prison more than necessary?" The activist urged her supporters to demand their governments not only allow humanitarian aid into Gaza, but more crucially, to seek an end to the occupation and to the ongoing systemic oppression and violence that Palestinians endure daily. She added that recognition of a Palestinian state is the absolute minimum governments around the world can do to help. What's happening with the other activists on board the Madleen? Thunberg was among 11 other passengers aboard the Madleen. Early Monday, Israeli naval forces captured the vessel without any incident approximately 200 kilometers from Gaza. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition, in conjunction with various rights organizations, stated that Israel's actions in international waters constitute a violation of international law. Israel, however, denies this accusation, asserting that these ships aim to violate what it claims is a legitimate naval blockade of the territory. The group said 3 activists, including Thunberg, had been deported. A journalist who was on board the vessel was also released and deported back to Paris. Sabine Haddad, a spokesperson for Israel's Interior Ministry, stated that the activists deported on Tuesday waived their rights to present their case before a judge. She added that all the remaining passengers aboard the Madleen will be held in detention for 96 hours prior, where they will be presented before a judge and their deportations scheduled for after the hearing. Like and subscribe for more information. Thanks.